Well, Stu, two great get-out-of-jail performances at the weekend, first by the league and then by the All Blacks. Breathtaking stuff.
Yeah, makes you think whether the big boy upstairs is a Kiwi, because both the Kiwis and the All Blacks, got up and won. But, that's all you've got to do, Tom. I mean, whether you win by 100 points or 1 point or 2 points, you get the big W beside your name, and W meaning wins is better than L for losses.
The Irish, obviously a consummate performance in that first 40, but did they just stop playing, or were they just, it was a case of the All Blacks getting themselves in tune with the match?
Well, as that game went on into the second half, I was thinking, wow, heck, this could be the big upset, Ireland beating the All Blacks for the first time. But, we just seem to go about our business. They trust themselves with their own ability. They trust themselves with their systems, both on attack and defence. And, I just think, even though it's the end of the year, I thought, looking at our fitness levels over the last handful of games that we've had on the Northern Tour, we're a pretty fit side. We don't panic. We get into chaos and, no one hits the fan. It's really quite calm. And we just go about our business. And, fortunately for the All Blacks, it took them, for the last minute of the game to actually win it. And then a couple of shots at goal, which made it even more theatrical, didn't it? So it was a strange way to finish the game. But, Tom, to be honest, I watched the Irish boys against the Wallabies last weekend, and they were dreadful. I'm thinking, God, if that's the best Ireland can perform. But as per usual, with every game the All Blacks play, they get up for the game, because guess what? They're playing the number one boys in the world, current world champions, so they lift their game, and it never surprised me that Ireland played that way this morning.
The power of the bench has proved a difference too, didn't it? When Dag and Jane, perhaps not having their best games, are able to bring on a Barrett and a Crotty who come on and make a difference.
Yeah, and they've done that all year, haven't they? Because, Steve Hansen and Foster and Ozzie McLean and, of course, Grant Fox, the four wise men, they put a huge amount of value on every person in that squad. So, you've even got a young guy that... Savia, who's gone away as an apprentice, all right? Hasn't played anything, just been within the team. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Woodcock or a Mialamu or a Carter or a McCaw that have played over 100 games. You might only be the new boy in the team, and you've only got a couple of tests on your belt. But every player in that team has equal amount of value. You are just as valuable to me coming off the bench for the last 10 minutes. In other words, the experience that McCaw and Carter have, versus young guys like Bowden Barrett and, just the new boys, they're treated equally the same. There's no big egos there. And so therefore, when you say, right, you're on the bench this week, but we value your contribution so much that we know when you come off the bench, you're going to make an impact. You've got to have an impact in the game. And too often, so many years ago, that, if you made the reserve bench, well, basically, you weren't good enough to make the starting 15, so you might get a couple of runs, might get a couple of minutes towards the end of the game. The value they place on every individual in that squad is huge.
Could I ask you about Ben Smith? Successful experiment at centre or not? You know how difficult that transition can be.
Oh, yeah, look, I used to sort of trot from 13 back to 14, and it's a hugely different position when you're in the 13 jersey. Where you're on the wing, you just basically listen to one man inside you, and you've got to look at the back door with, say, Israel Bag. But he's making a fair fist of it, all right? He's going okay. But considering that, he was one of our first pick wingers, and then, of course, with Conrad Smith getting a little holiday, then suddenly they say, who's in here to look at a replacement at the moment? So, you've got to look at what Ben Smith's done this year. I think he's played bloody near every minute of every test match. I don't think anyone else in that squad has played all 14 tests and gone the distance. He didn't go off this morning, did he?
No, he didn't. No.
So he's the only All Black that's played every test this year. He's played every test in every minute. Hasn't had a rest. It's a phenomenal record. From, in the June test, our number one wing three-quarter scoring tries every time, and suddenly goes on the Northern Hemisphere highlights. Only got to play centre. Oh, big call. Hasn't quite fitted the glove yet. got the glove over a couple of fingers. But you know, I used to always look at Conrad Smith. He was a bit rough and ready when he first made the Hurricanes years ago. And you know, it's like any position. You know, you grow into the position, you grow in confidence, and you grow with who you play with. You got to remember, Conrad Smith plays centre. He's got Nono inside, and they played together something like 60 tests together. Mm-hmm. So it was a big ask for Conrad Smith. I wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, Tom, next year where they may look at Charles Piutau to play in the centres, because I honestly think he's a great winger, without a doubt. He's just a young boy. He's also a great fullback, and he's also a great centre. Mm. So it wouldn't surprise me if they may experiment with Charles Piutau if you want to back up centre too.
And you got to play Smith somewhere, and because he can play fullback and wing, there's a place for him. And you got to play Piutau, he's the form, so it's a luxury of choice at the moment.
Oh yeah, well I mean you take what happened this year. You know, Corey Jane got injured. You know, and unfortunately in any physical game like rugby or league, if you get injured, you know, that gives an opportunity for someone else. That opportunity when Corey Smith went down earlier this year, one called Ben Smith took up the challenge and slotted on the wing. People think, oh, what do you reckon? All of a sudden, he's a superstar. He's first pick, right? And then he moves into centre, and all of a sudden, that gives an opportunity to Charles Piutau and Frank Halai to go play on the wing, you know? And then suddenly they look okay. But unfortunately, only two wingers can play, you know? Julian Sevilla, who had that bug and that lung infection while he's on tour, suddenly he gives his position up to Frank Halai, gives his position up to Piutau, and all of a sudden, hello. So the misfortune of someone gives an opportunity to the other, and that's what the rugby is all about. These guys, when they get a chance, they go out. That Charles Piutau, you can't tell me he didn't look out of place on the wing. He was sensational. Played 3 games in a row, and they decided to rest him and bring back Julian Sevilla. I mean, I just think, you know, what they've just got a very good group of players. They're well coached. There's no egos. They understand the situation, and they're very confident in what they've got. And to be honest, they really should have got knocked over this morning. And to be honest, they really should have got knocked over by the Poms. I mean, the Poms had everything. Just couldn't know how to win the game. However, it's an 80-minute game, and if you win a try, you score a try and kick the winning goal, even though they took two shots at goal to win the game, if you win it in the last minute, the last second, fine. And right at the moment, the All Blacks are the only team that can get up and win tight games.
And their place in history, I know they're saying, 14 wins, first time in the modern era, but it's really hard to compare teams against those in the past fairly, isn't it? Because there's been some fantastic All Black teams before that may not have quite the record, but on paper be as equally as good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I hate making comparisons with the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the year 2000. But what they've done is that they've just got in their little time zone. You know, year 2000, this year will be a very good year in the history books of New Zealand, where we've gone through 14 internationals unbeaten. But not only have we gone unbeaten, which is a fantastic record, and you've got to be very proud of what these boys have done, it's the way they've gone about their business, the way they've played. They haven't had a whole lot of bad games. I mean, they haven't had a game like they did last year when they got absolutely pulverised by England. You know, they've gone close in certain games. They've probably sat down in the sheds afterwards, gee, we're pretty lucky to win that one. And they would be saying that this morning in Dublin. They would have been saying that in London last week. You know, they got up and got out of jail and won the tight games. But, you know, if you want to maintain the number one position in the world and be the best, then every time you take the track, whoever's going to line up against you, and their track record may be crap, they're going to come hunting you. And unless you're up for it mentally and physically, then you don't give yourself a chance. And you can't tell me what, we're 20 points down this morning and we snuck up and won in the last second of the game. That's how good our boys are. It's the way they've played. They've played some sensational rugby. I think the game of the year this year was when South Africa and New Zealand in South Africa. You know, the South Africans up for a game, we're up for a game, and it was just a real big belter. And I don't mind paying money to go along and watch that. And obviously 80-odd thousand people, you know, they love when the All Blacks hit town. They have played some sensational rugby, and we're just a little bit ahead of the rest of the world. But guess what, Tom? The chasing pack are right up our bums, you know. They're looking at how we unload. How can Kieran Reid always unload a one-arm pass and find the guy? It's because he trains it. It's ingrained in our system. I watched the Poms 2 weeks ago. I just couldn't believe how cumbersome and how inept they were in the midfield. I've seen 9-year-old schoolboys catch and pass the ball better than those English boys in the midfield. They were absolutely dreadful. And if that's the best they've got, then they're always going to chase us.